Hoping for an end to Irish police corruption is like screwing for virginity. After spending years studying police corruption in Ireland, it would appear that we are being policed by some very dodgy characters indeed. This corrupt police force seems to have a cute whore culture ingrained so deeply that it's like an incurable cancer. It's like the most highly organised criminal gang in the country, where we have our own Cosa Nostra, a bit like the Sicily, but without the publicity, with the exception of the media arm of the corrupt Irish police force, which is the discredited Sunday World newspaper, who obtains this information on a regular basis illegally from corrupt Irish police officers. It's safe to say that the Irish police force remains one of the most secretive and corrupt police forces in the world, because by the very nature of the profession of the police officer in Ireland, they are involved in the initiation of violence, theft, extortion, coercion, enslavement, amongst other serious crimes. I suppose functionally and institutionally, a very vast majority of Irish police force members are criminals and or know of a colleague who is, and is not saying anything about it. I suppose statistically speaking, in Ireland you have more of a chance of being attacked or assaulted or even killed by a policeman than you do from a terrorist. One option would be that the Irish police force needs to be dismantled, rebranded, and in this particular case, any officer who has lied or submitted false evidence be put on trial, or interned indefinitely. These officers who assault members of the public and who lie and perjure themselves have no place in society. So I suspect, rule number one is that the police work for the government, not for the people, and it must be recognised that these so-called police officers, they have a duty of care because of the citizens' vulnerability. They have a special responsibility to ensure the protection and to uphold the human rights of the citizen. And the unfortunate reality is that they don't, and police do murder innocent people in their custody, and they get away with it. I mean, it's worth stating that the Irish police force do not put their lives on the line every day. They actually have one of the safest jobs in the country. Farmers and fishermen and firemen, they put their lives on the line every day. It's extremely rare for an Irish policeman to be killed by way of felonious assault. I suppose most die in car accidents, by way of drunk driving or drug overdoses, and many of these deaths are the fault of the cop itself. I've been campaigning, I campaigned for years that Ireland should have a special court where members of the public can bring a case against members of the Irish police force. A special court because indeed they are special criminals, but they are also members of the Irish police force. And I suppose following on from that, the judges should be from mainland Europe with one Irish uncorrupted judge. And it should read as follows, that all citizens shall, as human persons, be held equal before the law. Ireland has a constitution and laws to protect the members of the public, but it is being used and abused by the state, the Gardaí and legal professionals. I suppose they follow on to say, like as children, that we were always taught that the police, were our friends, that we could go to them and confide in them, and if we were lost in trouble, and they would help. What a fucking mistake. I've been practicing law for over 25 years, and I never cease to be amazed at the number of people accused of a crime who seem to cling to the childhood belief that they can confide in the police. and the police will help and protect them, and everything will be just fine. And a lot of them actually believe that the police will work for them to prove them innocent. Again, what a fucking mistake. The police they're not necessary in Ireland. They provide no public service. They're not needed in communities. And we shouldn't depend on them. There is no such thing in Ireland as a professional, well-trained police officer. They're corrupt to the core. They're all bad cops, just the way they're all bad solicitors. These days, on the streets of Ireland, these corrupt police officers share the belief that they're engaged in some kind of a war against crime. Even though they are the real criminals, they tend to share the view of, with each other, that it's us against them, and that they're the good guys, and that the citizen is the enemy, and that the citizen must be defeated and must be destroyed at all costs. Otherwise, fucking civilization and life as we know it will be destroyed. I suppose, the police are corrupt criminal scum, and they're rotten to the core. And the problem with that approach, of course, is that is that in a war that there is only really one rule, and that's to win and do whatever it takes to win. And it suggests that the end justifies the means, that the police are above the law, or the police are the law, that it's right for them to break the law or do whatever it takes to accomplish their mission, and which is to suppress crime. I created a firestorm of controversy a couple of years ago by stating that the obvious truth that many judges and prosecutors, police and defence solicitors know from first-hand experience, that the police on mostly all occasions lie. I mean, you're going to ask, does that mean every cop is a bad cop, or or do they lie about everything every day? Yes. What basically you have to acknowledge that in communities across the country, most police officers make the judgment that some person, who he or she believes to be guilty of a crime, is going to get away with it. And if it's the officer plays by the rules and obeys the law himself, that he could be faced with the prospect, that it makes, faced with that prospect, it makes a conscious decision to lie, or to plant evidence where none exists, or to hide or destroy evidence, and that if found, it might undermine the case by showing the person to be innocent. I suppose there's something more disturbing than the fact that most police officers lie or plant evidence or suppress favourable evidence. The most disturbing fact is that if people weren't so afraid, that they would see the danger inherent in that attitude, and realise that it's their rights, not just those of the criminals, but that they're being sacrificed in the phony war on crime, and the only winners in this phony war on crime are the corrupt criminal police, who are the only ones who have big houses and fancy cars and large pay packets, etc. So you're left with the question that who are the real criminals? Well, the answer is that the police are the criminals. They are the most criminal gang in Ireland in this present day, and I mean these guys have secretive units within their units. And I exposed some time ago about corruption and criminality in the Irish Police, the Garda Special Detective Unit. And, I confirmed what many already knew, that the murky world of the Secret Service Special Branch, police activity is deeply entwined with unlawful and criminal behaviour. Especially with the informers for a corrupt special branch who committed serious crimes, while corrupt officers protected the scum and ensured that they wouldn't be caught. And following on, that prosecutions of those responsible were unlikely to follow, rather, because documents needed to prosecute were deliberately destroyed. And I mean, this is very uncomfortable, because crimes, murder, collusion, cover-up, obstruction of investigations, and perjury. They happen today, and I suppose not least because of the lack of accountability mechanisms that have not been put in place over recent years, rather than even attempting to deal with the serious implications of Garda corruption. This corrupt government rides shotgun with the partners in crime and the corrupt criminal Garda special branch. Since the corrupt government has given the corrupt police and the corrupt special branch unprecedented new powers, under various anti-terrorism laws, powers they are bound to use in order to protect their own interests. Power corrupts, and acting outside the law and secretly, has become easier, not more difficult for the police, under the current climate of fear-mongering and misinformation. It's true that the corrupt special branch illegality in Ireland has reached, epidemic proportions. If anything, the corrupt government has helped the special branch to avoid detection for their illegal activities, and has made it easier for them to become a law unto themselves. But I suppose, a sound bit of advice that if you're ever stopped by, police in your area, especially the criminal, corrupt police, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you will say will be taken down and misquoted and used against you. So remain silent. It's not a choice. It's your only choice. I mean, in my time, the police have become criminals, and a lot of police officers are using their powers to do very, very bad things, and society in general has come to fear the police. And I suppose it needs to change. The enforcement system needs to change. The courts have failed the people. The police have turned to other means of justice or injustice, and how can we stop, how can we stop the police force? How can we stop the corrupt police force? I have no respect for the police and the job they do. These policemen are a selected few who don't do a dangerous job. I mean, they have done very, very, many bad things to bring down communities. And then they continue their criminal ways during their off-duty hours. The police do not enforce the law in our communities. Every day they step out in a world of corruption, where it's considered appropriate. Our laws have allowed police criminals to slip through the crack of this corrupt justice system, where police criminals who have raped, killed, and have walked on technicalities, and I suppose the results have left the public with a sense of failure by the system. And, I suppose across this country, police have been involved in scandals and drugs and crime for decades, and have abused the powers they have been given, and the communities don't trust the police in Ireland. And it's because of their conduct towards the citizens, and people have been beaten, harassed, and and they've seen the police push individuals around, take things from individuals for no reason, and it just sends out the wrong message. And we can no longer see the difference between the police and the criminals. And I suppose they'll sleep soundly tonight, knowing that they're brothers in arms. The judges of Ireland, they're not immune from prosecution from criminal behaviour either. I mean, the judges, the only way to make a judge answerable for his criminal behaviour is to bring criminal charges against him. The ultimate irony here is that the only way to bring a criminal charge against a bad judge is to ask another bad judge for permission to pursue that bad judge. And of course we know in Ireland that will never happen. I mean, a judge who is honest 99% of the time is useless to the people. 1% of corruption equals 100% of conviction. Your right to a fair trial doesn't go away just because 9 out of 10 people did get one. Your right to challenge a man for criminal behaviour should not go away just because this man wears a fucking black robe and knickers and a wig. Judges, they cannot tolerate exceptions, and just like a cop, a priest, if they cross the line once, they have to go. Dishonesty is extremely difficult to detect and prove, and I suppose external, independent, unbiased inquiry would be one of the solutions. But I mean, judges have taken control of your rights, and to assert your guaranteed rights. I mean, they're no longer inalienable as guaranteed in the Constitution. You have them only, I suppose, when a judge feels like letting you have them. If he doesn't, you don't. There's fuck all you can do about it. Effectively, judges dispense our rights at their whim and pleasure, and with total impunity. I suppose if we go back to police corruption now, I mean, I suppose police, problems like police and judicial corruption have no easy answer. However, there are steps you can take to target the root of the problem. And that's by starting to hold officers and judges accountable for their actions. If corrupt police officers, use too much force, they should be put in jail. If a judge assists in this criminal enterprise of the corrupt police officer, he should be interned indefinitely. The people must show the police that misconduct, will not be tolerated. So, I mean, we need Nuremberg-style courts to bring back the death penalty for corrupt Irish police force members who murder and intimidate and assault innocent Irish citizens. And then we see a fucking change to this kind of behaviour.